It was fine at first. People were sitting down trying to hold their spots in line. It was still daylight, but as that was like 6:15, 6:30. As it got closer to 8:30, 8 o'clock, people started, crowding. Got kind of tight, got kind of packed. 8:15, more crowded, more tight, more packed. We couldn't really move around a lot. I couldn't even turn my head to tell my boyfriend anything. I mean, we were packed in there, so I had people shoving me from behind, shoving me from the front on both sides. It's getting really hard to breathe. People recording the concert, recording us doing CPR, recording the concert, dancing, and then meanwhile you have others that are climbing up the tower to the staff that's in charge of the lighting and saying, "Stop this, shut it down." They're trying to shut the concert down. Nothing was being done. It was absolutely insane.
Obviously, everybody's opening up mosh pits. We're having a good time, but there's a lot of people that are very selfish. There's people that I saw a pit that was being held together by people, but because in the pit was people that fell, so they were standing together to help the people get up. And I witnessed somebody unconscious struggling to get out. Like their friends were trying to get him out, and just people weren't caring enough to make a path. So as I'm a 400-pound guy, so I jump in because that's just my instinct, and I just make a path for him. And on my way back to the middle, I meet a girl that's hyperventilating. So it said I couldn't tell her, hey, calm down. I immediately just grab her, and I'm rushing back.
What's going on? What's good? What's happening? Part of my Presence YouTube channel, I want to discuss a tragedy that occurred in Houston over the weekend at the Astroworld Festival, a festival that was headlined, and I believe it was attached to Travis Scott's name. I don't know how much involved he was with the planning and organizing, but he did lend his name to the event. And it led to a lot of people coming into the festival to witness all of the performances by various artists. I believe Drake was also in attendance. It's quite funny how they don't really mention his name in regards to it, but he was there. He performed on this first day that it came out. Now, unfortunately, what happened was that there was some type of issue with overcrowding, and people weren't able to breathe, and some people collapsed due to heat exhaustion or just due to the fact that it was just pretty much insane conditions. And it led to 8 people dying. Now, according to the news reports, they're saying that 8 people died and about 17 others were injured or had to be hospitalized. And what's tragic to me is the age range of the victims, because they mentioned that out of the 8 deaths, they range in age from 14 years old to 27. Now, I'm not going to lie. What was interesting about this is the fact that when I heard about it initially, because it hit me on the radio, and I'm thinking, well, why are they talking about a festival on the radio? Because up here in Canada, they don't really talk about those things too much. But I'm like, okay, what happened? When I heard that 8 people died, again, they always give you the preview, they never give you the full details. So when I heard 8 people died, all I could think of was some type of gun violence, some type of shooting, and stuff of that nature. So I was, sorry to say, but I was very pleased. Okay, I'll take that back. Maybe that's the wrong word. Not pleased, but I was relieved that this tragedy wasn't due to any gun violence. That's the first thing, okay? Nonetheless, 8 people losing their life, it's sad, and you could say that it's unacceptable as well too. And a lot of people are outraged because this reached all over the world pretty much, as far as all of the news, the articles. This is like a trending topic. And the sad thing about it is the fact that 8 people lost their lives. And people, as always, when people die like this in these type of tragedies, people want to point fingers and place blame on somebody. And a lot of times it's because people are looking to find out who's liable, because they're going to look to sue. People are trying to find solace in pointing the fingers at somebody else. People are trying to make sense of everything. And this is why they need a bad guy, or they need some type of thing to hold on to say, this is why it happened, and this is who we need to direct our anger towards and get some justice. So I've seen that a lot throughout this whole story and this whole ordeal. And I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of people can take the blame for this, right? But of course, because it's Travis Scott's festival, and Travis Scott is the only name you know. You don't know the name of the promoters. You don't know the name of the organizers. You don't know the name of the security guards. You don't know the name of all of the medics and paramedics and all of the emergency staff that's supposed to be around, the security team. We don't know any of those names. All we know is the name Travis Scott. So everybody, more than anybody else, is going to blame him. And it's sad, it's tragic, but at the same time, being that it was his festival, and he probably is the one that probably will get, well, we don't know the splits, but he's probably has a lot to gain from the proceeds of all of the sales. So because he's the one who stood to gain the most from this, then you could say it's only right that he also takes the blame for most of this as well too. But here's the thing. The blame that people were placed on him had to do with the fact that he still performed and that he still continued with the concert, even though all of these things, the death and destruction was going on in the crowd. Now, let's be for real. From his vantage point, he's on stage, he's meters away from the crowd. All he could see from his vantage point are people moving, the crowd, the waves of the crowd, and that is normal, especially for that type of music, which is up tempo. The music is more of a vibing music. People are jumping, people are rocking back and forth. So he can't tell that it's crowded, over capacity. He can't tell that people are dying, that people are getting trampled. There's loud music blasting. He can't hear people yelling for him to stop. He can't hear any of those things. Keep in mind, when these artists perform, they have that thing in the air. The name of it passes me, but they have, I think it's the monitor. They have the monitor in the air because without that monitor, they can't hear the beat. They can't hear the track to rhyme over, right? They end up being off key. They end up being off the track. So they had that monitor in the ear so they could hear. Why? Because the noise, all the noise, the atmosphere, they can't hear shit. So I give him that pass. I'm not going to fault him for that, because if you notice, in some of the footage that you see on Twitter and everywhere else, there's a footage where Travis Scott is saying, whoa, 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 hold on. Check that person right there. That person passed out. Again, I'm hearing there's 50,000 people there, but he's able to point out that, look, somebody has passed out. Attend to them. Let's wait. Let's make sure that they're taken care of, and then we could continue. He doesn't know that any of these things happened. He doesn't know what the aftermath was going to be. So I can't place blame on him for that. And then when he was able to make that determination, he did take the appropriate steps. But a lot of people are saying, well, he should have stopped the show. And here's the thing. Most artists, when they're performing, they're not going to stop the show unless their safety is jeopardized. Meaning that the stage area becomes an unsafe area where they have to leave. Right? You see that a lot when it comes to like local clubs or local events where there's not much of a stage in between you and the crowd, and then there's some safety issues or there's some threats that are made from people in the crowd towards the artist, and then they have to leave, or there are people throw bottles, stuff like that. So artists usually leave because of those things, not because of something that happens independently in the crowd. That rarely happens. The people who are in charge of shutting down an event, if they find it unsafe or they find that there's tragedy that occurs, whether it's outside or inside, it's usually emergency staff and security. All the times that I've been to a concert, whenever it's shut down, whenever a club had to be or a building had to be evacuated, it's usually because there's a shooting, or it's usually because the police shut it down, the fire chief or the fire marshal says it's over capacity. You guys violated the terms of agreements. You guys violated the insurance policies. It gets shut down now. Or you hear the promoter come on and say, look, this shouldn't be happening. We need to get shit under control or else we shut shit down. And that's the crowd control that should have taken place in this. But it didn't happen. And there's a couple of reasons why, right? There's so many people that could take blame for this. So I'm going to break it down bit by bit. So if you want to place blame, the first people you should look at would be the promoters, excuse me, and the organizers. Now, keep in mind that we just come out of a pandemic and we just come out of a situation where the economy was shut down. Artists were not able to perform for maybe 1.5 years. So this is a huge festival. It might even be one of the first festivals to come out since everything has been opened up. So couple of things that people need to understand. Number one is that you're going to get a massive amount of people wanting to go to this concert, not just because it's one of our premier artists, Travis Scott, but also because this is the first of its kind this year and they don't want to miss it. And they have all of the other artists underneath and they want to see them perform. So they're going to go. On top of that, it's in Travis's hometown in Houston, so you're going to get that added hometown support as well too. But here's the other element to this that people aren't talking about. It's the fact that these festivals make big money, more so than the stadium events. I remember when I was growing up, when I went to rap concerts, it was in venues that were like could only hold 500 people, right? It was like the club venues, and the artists would perform their hits in the club. But then as rap progressed and people thought bigger and expanded, I remember Jay-Z was probably one of the first to start doing stadium events. Not one of the first, but in most recent times, right? He did stadium events. Madison Square Garden, the Barclays Center. People are doing shows in the LA Coliseum. People are doing shows in the Scotiabank Arena, the Skydome. So in other words, you have rappers branching out doing large stadium events. And they were making big money. And no longer could you touch the rapper on stage like you once could before in more of an intimate setting at a club, a local club. You still get the underground rappers that have to go there. But now all of these premier rappers, they're garnering the stadiums, the coliseums, the big indoor domes. And they would charge people an astronomical amount of money. But they could only sell a limited amount of tickets. Why? Because you had to sell tickets based on the seating. So there's a limited capacity based on the amount of seats that each stadium and indoor venue holds. These are usually not Live Nation events, right? That's when things picked up. When Hov signed a deal with Live Nation and started doing those tours in stadiums owned by Live Nation, that's when these big stadium tours started hitting for rappers, right? So you had these tickets that were being sold, but it's limited amount of tickets because you have limited amount of seats. So this is what used to happen. You used to get in there, you take your seat, you dance, you stand, you wouldn't go anywhere further. And then you also have the general admission seats up in front. Sometimes you have to pay more for that section, sometimes you pay less. But there's some areas where it's standing room only to get a more of like a concert feel. But you can never go overboard with the tickets. And not only that, you had to pay for the insurance. You had to pay for all of the concession. So in other words, the overhead of leasing or renting out this stadium, it cost promoters an arm and a leg. but not at festivals. Now, don't quote me on this. I don't know the full, how should I say it? I don't know the full details or the contracts, but I'm pretty sure because these festivals are taking place in open spaces of land, in parks, the overhead is a lot cheaper. Yes, you have to build the stage, set up the lights, all that stuff. Yeah, that's not a big deal, right? You gotta do that anyways when you go to a stadium. But this overhead that you'd pay is not there. And not only that, because it's the open space, less restrictions. I'm pretty sure the insurance might even be cheaper. I don't know, but less restrictions because of open air policy. You don't have to worry about the whole COVID situation. So all of those things are non-existent. But not only that, because it's the open space and you're not affixed to a seat, you could sell an unlimited amount of tickets. And because this is a situation where you're coming out of the pandemic, and you have people that are looking to enjoy themselves at a concert, and you have the organizers and promoters looking to catch a lick because they want to get their money, they're going to sell as many tickets as humanly possible, going overboard. Because what happened when I played all of those clips for you to see, the one common factor that they all mentioned is the fact that it was crowded. It felt like hell. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't turn my neck to see who I was with. I couldn't raise my hand. I was being pushed by the crowd. I couldn't move. People were passing out. People were under me. People were getting trampled. I had to be brought across through the crowd, pushing me above their heads. That crowd surfing. So you're hearing them talk about what was going on. And the factor is, they oversold tickets. Too many people were there. And I'm pretty sure they didn't bust through the locked gates. I'm pretty sure they bought their tickets legally. They did everything that they're supposed to do legally. But because you can't really determine what the capacity is in an open setting like that, they can sell as much tickets as they want. And this is where you get these issues of overcrowding, of mismanagement. And I don't think people realize how dangerous a crowd is and how you could be left without any will of your own trying to go against this crowd. You will get trampled if you don't follow the crowd. I know situations during Caravana where people think that, something happened and people are running and a stampede occurs. People are jumping over fences, tripping over strollers. People running with their kids. People lose their kids in the melee. No one knows what's going on. And that crowd is maybe of, 300 within that vicinity. Although, Caravana is a big, huge event. Thousands of people come, tens of thousands. But in that one area where stampede might occur, it's not that many people. So imagine 50,000 people in a small, I wouldn't say small, but in a compact area, packed like sardines. And people are moving, pushing, shoving, trying to get a better location so they can watch the concert. The artist that they like is now performing, so I want to get the best footage for my phone. Melee. And that's what occurred. So if you want to blame someone, you could blame the organizers and the promoters. Why did they sell so many tickets? Why were they greedy enough? Why were they greedy to the point where they were willing to sell so many tickets and not have the proper security and the proper medical staff, the proper emergency staff to get this all done? And that leads to my next question about this event. What responsibility did the city have to the concert goers? Because if I'm not mistaken, the permits had to be taken out and approved by the city. And if I'm not mistaken, the city also has to be involved with providing the police protection or the security, the EMS or the emergency people, medical staff, paramedics, all on standby. Those are all city employees. They're not privately, though they shouldn't be privately trained or privately hired employees. They're supposed to be city workers. And at an event like this, for a guy that I think you gave a Houston day to, Travis Scott, you know how important he is to Houston and the power of his celebrity. Why were you ill prepared for this? Why did it seem like you were completely unaware that it could get like this? He's had this festival for 3 years now. 2018 is when he started, 2019, and then now 2021. 2020 didn't occur because of the whole pandemic. But the point is, it's not the first time. So you should have been aware, you should have been prepared, you should have been more stringent on the requests before the permits were approved. So yes, the city has a head in this. They are culpable just as well as Travis Scott and the organizers, if you were to ask me. So the last thing I want to point out is that you have a vast age difference when you have an all ages event like this. And as we heard, we had people as young as 10 years old at this concert, and people, I'm pretty sure, were in the 40s and 50s at this concert as well too. Whenever you have that many people in that age range all together, chaos is bound to happen, and you have to watch over your children. So you have to ask the question, where were the parents? Why weren't the parents making sure that their kids were well taken care of, that the kids were either being chaperoned or the kids understood not to get involved in being deep in the crowds? Because as we saw in that footage that I played earlier, you have a 400-pound man pushing people out of the way to make room for a woman that collapsed. How is a 10-year-old supposed to defend themselves and make sure they don't get trampled over when you have a 400-pound man bulldozing through the crowd? Whether he intentionally meant to do it is the fact that there's people at that size, and I'm pretty sure he's an adult, he probably looks like he's in his 20s. When you have people like that around in the same vicinity as you are a victim. You are a mark. And you need to make sure that you're off to the side. So I never liked all ages events. I always preferred 19 and over because at least you know everyone's an adult. You also know that you're able to drink and move around in the event freely. Usually in these events with all ages, you go and drink alcohol in certain restricted areas and you must stay there until you finish your drink. But again, when it comes to the main stage and you have these large crowds of people that are in compact areas and you have a mixed age group like that, that's just a sign for disaster. You're asking for it because a 14-year-old is not going to be able to defend themselves and be able to push up and prop themselves up and stiffen their back against someone who's 25 years old and probably spent a few of his last years lifting weights in the prime of his life. He's not going to be able to overcome that. Right? So it's a recipe of disaster. On top of that, when you add in the element of drugs, because a lot of these festivals, they make their names of the fact that you can openly purchase drugs. MDMA, ecstasy, Molly, whatever the drug is called nowadays, mushrooms, all that shit was all made famous from these festivals and in EDM festivals all across Europe and all those different things. That is what it was about. And trust me, they're not looking at your age. They're not asking for ID. So I'm pretty sure they were selling to people who are underage as well. And that's a cause of concern. So just to wrap everything up, there's many people who could take blame, not just Travis Scott. Unfortunately, he is the most famous person, so he's going to get put into the news and put into headlines, and sad. But there's many more people who are probably, in my opinion, more responsible than he is. And it's sad that this happened. It's sad that that 14-year-old lost her life. It's sad that all of those people, the 8 people, lost their lives. But my advice, my solution for this, have more control over the festival. Make the permits harder to get. Make sure that there's adequate staff. Make sure that the emergency staff, the EMS or the paramedics, are real paramedics, not just private people who are hired to be assistants, but people who actually are paramedics and who actually are professionals in the field. So in other words, get city employees, get city workers there, and let police provide security when it comes to large venues like that. Especially all ages, where anything is bound to happen to a minor because they're not able to defend themselves. You need real security there. And that shouldn't be a choice for the promoters and organizers. That should be a requirement written in the agreement for the permits. So that's my take on the whole situation. Again, I'm not going to blame Travis Scott for all of this, but you let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. Hit the like button. Let me know how you feel. But until next time, as I always say, next move, best move. Part of my presence YouTube channel. Peace.